Hello, everyone. I am Ninette Adhikari, working as a software developer with Neighbourhoodie for a couple of years now. And as Jan mentioned, I will be walking you through CouchDB's new JavaScript engine, QuickJS. Yeah. So QuickJS is a JavaScript engine which is very much like SpiderMonkey. So it can basically do the same tasks as SpiderMonkey, just with better performance and maintainability. So SpiderMonkey is, as you all know already, that it is Mozilla's JavaScript engine that lives in Firefox. And QuickJS is built by an individual developer, and it is a standalone library on its own. So SpiderMonkey is still the default JavaScript engine in CouchDB, so you don't need to worry about any compatibility issue at the get-go, so which is great. Yeah, so you might be asking why QuickJS at all if it does all the things as SpiderMonkey. So yeah, to answer that, let's take a step back and look at SpiderMonkey itself a little bit. So as mentioned earlier, it is predominantly embedded in Firefox, and it's also available as a standalone library that you can use. However, its development progress is very much tied to Firefox. And whenever or whatever Firefox needs, SpiderMonkey gets those built in, which means that every other year or so, you get big changes in the API of SpiderMonkey. And every time that happens, CouchDB has to upgrade their new API to connect SpiderMonkey to CouchDB. So that's a difficult process to make sure every year or so, whenever there's a change in the API. So we were looking at other JavaScript engines that has a more stable API, and QuickJS was one of those. So it is tiny and has a stable API that doesn't change every couple of years. So when it comes to maintainability, QuickJS is truly standalone library with a stable API as mentioned. And it also has a handful of files that is straightforward to read, build, and use. And on the other hand, SpiderMonkey has a really big code base and essentially has hundreds of files. And compared to that, QuickJS is just much easier to handle. And quickly, another issue with SpiderMonkey that we have noticed is that we have it listed as a dependency. And if you want to install CouchDB, you will need to first install SpiderMonkey. And SpiderMonkey isn't always available on all platforms for all versions, so that sometimes becomes an issue. But with QuickJS, where the source code of CouchDB already includes a copy of it, so we essentially ship it all together, so you don't have to install any separate dependency, which is pretty neat. And yeah, and so in terms of maintainability, clearly it is a quick win. And also want to mention that it is easier to isolate JavaScript operations from separate database from each other with sandboxing. I won't go too much details into this, but this is very helpful in enhancing security of the folks who would want to use or access CouchDB in different security contexts. So that is also a great win for QuickJS. And yes, as mentioned earlier, one of the biggest reasons for the move is performance. So here are some interesting statistics here. SpiderMonkey version 185, which is the earliest that we support, is about 4 times faster, and SpiderMonkey 91 is about 5 times. And if you have a lot of views going on, a lot of changes, feed filtering with JavaScript, or just a lot of JavaScript work that you do in CouchDB, you'll need a lot of CouchJS processes to handle that. And if you have, say, hundreds of them, then you would already spending a couple of gigabytes of RAM on that. And that is a lot of RAM without actually doing anything. Compared to that, QuickJS is just a lot smaller. You can run a lot more on the same amount of RAM, which is very nice. Um, yeah. And I will give a quick demo to see how the performance differences are with SpiderMonkey and QuickJS in a bit. So that'll be nice. And lastly, another interesting thing to note there is that the compilation of bytecode. So when you start SpiderMonkey process, the first thing it needs to do is it loads a lot of JavaScript that gives it the runtime environment for views. For example, for your map functions, init function, reduces and all. So every time you start it, it has to be parsed, translated to bytecode to finally run. And for QuickJS, we can do this at compile time. So when we build CouchDB, we take all the JavaScript and turn it into JavaScript bytecode. So when QuickJS starts, everything is already there and it has to execute the bytecode and just continue. So way faster. So that's really nice. So yeah, so now we'll see how we can quickly update the config to use QuickJS and see how that works. Let me quickly switch my screens so we can see that. Um, that's not, yep. Let's quickly make sure that I'm also, yep. So there are two places where you can change your JavaScript engine options. One is in the config section of CouchDB. So you see that by default right now I have SpiderMonkey, but you could essentially change it to QuickJS here. And the other place would be in your design document. So this is a pretty neat feature where you can actually define the language per design document in case you don't want to have it across for everything. So that way you can actually see if it works better and then make the switch over. So I think that's a pretty helpful feature to have. So let's see how this works. So basically what I have put together is um, using a script that runs about 20 concurrent workers and create a DB and then basically inserts a bunch of documents, DDocs views, and queries the views and repeats that 3 times in a row. I am not going to go through the script because that would just take too long. But it is available in the CouchDB repository, and if someone is interested to like tweak through it and work on it, that's also possible. So yeah, let's see how this works. So you note that we do have, let me move this. Note that we do have the JS engine set as SpiderMonkey. So we're gonna run the script and see how that goes. So basically here I am adding some design docs, number of docs and worker count, and see how long it takes with SpiderMonkey. I hope this works. All right, so it's about 25 seconds here. So let's switch this over to QuickJS and see how that fares. Spoiler alert, it will be better, hopefully. I'm going to quickly do this. Oh, sorry, I forgot to change my, oh, not this, this. So I don't know if you actually saw me change the config. Apologies. I just changed this to QuickJS from SpiderMonkey. That's all I did. And it is still saved. Yep. I will switch over to my terminal again. Yep. And then let's run the same thing again and let's see how that fares. Oh, what? No. Sorry about this. That is not, I'm just going to quickly restart my couch again and do that. Yep. Sorry about that. My couch wasn't running properly at that time. So yeah, 12. So about like 3 times, I would say. Again, this is a very, very basic script and very basic way of looking at it. A lot has actually been done to do the measurements of performance. So if you're more interested in seeing how that works or how that's been done, you can look at further, yeah, information that's available. So yeah, um, that's that on the performance. Um, yeah. So moving on. So now, how do we proceed? So we've seen that QuickJS is great. It's great performance, lightweight, amazing. So how does that affect me? So right now, SpiderMonkey still remains as default. So it's nothing is going to break for you if you do this upgrade. You just have an option to switch over to QuickJS if you think it would be beneficial. And you can safely try it by switching over each design document one by one, or I'll come to that in the next slide, how you can actually do a quick review of that as well. So you've already seen that you can yeah, switch that in the config file as well as in the design documents. Um, but one thing to note is there are some incompatibility with the SpiderMonkey 91 right now. Two of the key ones are listed here. They're the 1 through 9 fields on the regex object are not available in QuickJS, so that would throw an error. And the toString function on date object does not include time zone, but the SpiderMonkey one does. So that would again show some errors if you have these kind of data in your yeah. Uh, so so yeah, what basically so that you don't run into these incompatibility issues, there is a really neat plugin available called Couch Scanner plugin. So you can configure it in the config file, like so, the Couch QuickJS Scanner plugin equals to true. And by default, the scanner plugin runs when you start CouchDB. So when it's enabled. But you can also configure it to start a later time using their options like QuickJS plugin scanner options in the config setting, where you can set it to a later time or to run it periodically at whatever desired intervals that would want it to run. So once you run it, what happens is that the scanner runs in the background and it looks through all your design documents and runs them against both SpiderMonkey and QuickJS. And anytime they report a different result from either of those, you see a new entry in your log file. So you would see in your log file the error messages or whatever incompatibility that there is when the scan is run. So you can see also what changes needs to be made based on those logs. And if you see that all is okay, then you can easily switch over to QuickJS without having to face any issues. But if you do see some errors, then you could update your data accordingly to make sure that it passes. Um, an example here is that like the first group of you see over here is the QuickJS output, And the second section is the SpiderMonkey output, and you see that the SpiderMonkey output has the timestamp. The CET is present, time zone, sorry, and it's missing in the QuickJS one. So you can see that in the data, the toString function was not rendered correctly. I think I might have that here as well. Quickly show you that. Yep. So I do have a example design doc here where you are like emitting a toString to the doc text, which is a date. So in this case, if you go back to my, oops, I hope you're not seeing the jumping of my screen as I see it on my screen, which is kind of funky. But here you would see that it is an invalid date if it's for QuickJS because QuickJS does not recognize this format. So you would be able to see some of the incompatibilities already here in the views. But if I had looked at my scanner logs, I would have already known it and I would not have changed it to QuickJS because then I would know this would fail. But this is just to show you how it's rendered here. Yeah, let's go back. Yep. All right. So actually, that is all from me. That was just a quick overview of QuickJS. I have to do that, quick overview of QuickJS, but sorry about that. But yeah, this is a really great new feature of this release. I hope you get to play around with it. And yeah, and if you want more information on the release, release notes are available on documentation of CouchDB. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. That's all for me. Thank you.